Wife had been flirting with her co-worker. She said she would stop, but it just happened again. Is there any future in this relationship? My wife and I have been married for slightly more than 3 years now. Last Christmas, I found she had been having a long conversation with a co-worker of hers, in which they talked about having had S*X multiple times, and that they couldn't wait for the next one. The guy said he was going to book a hotel near their office right after Christmas in this conversation when he said he was looking forward to seeing my wife. She would reply with things like, "I'm looking forward to much more than just seeing you," etc. You get the idea, overly flirty and S***ual. When I confronted my wife, she denied the conversation existed after deleting it. She showed me her phone to prove it didn't exist, but I had taken a few pictures. She then said it was all virtual and that they never did anything physical to prove she was right. She messaged her co-worker in front of me asking if he had booked the hotel. He replied not yet. She then asked if he was really expecting them to meet, to which he replied negatively. She promised they would never talk again, and I agreed, simply because I love her a lot and wanted to trust her. But in my mind, I wasn't completely sure she had been honest. For a few weeks, I must admit I checked her phones a few too many times, so she changed her password, which I was fine with because I was probably being too paranoid. This week, I picked her phone up because I needed a code that had been sent to her phone number. I didn't even need to unlock the screen to get it. To my surprise, under the message with the code, there were other messages from the same guy. One of them was an audio. The second one was a shirtless photo of himself in front of a mirror. And the third one said sweaty and a few emojis with the tongue. I confronted her since she had promised they wouldn't talk ever again, and she said he just wanted to show her he's going to the gym to show progress, but that the rest of the times they talk it's just about work and that this is just a coincidence. I asked her to show me the rest of their messages, but she said she had mistakenly deleted their conversation history. My wife says she's going to change this time and that I never really forgave her, and that's why she kept talking to the guy. She says this time she's really going to stop, but I have a hard time believing it, or even if she does stop. I fear when things don't go so well between us, she'll do it again. I really love her but can't keep living like this. Is there any situation in which this can work? What would you do? Update, you were right. I ignored every single one of your comments and eventually caught my wife with the other man. This is a tough pill to swallow, and I can't say I hadn't been warned. This is my previous post. Many folks asked me to follow up with an update, so here it is, fresh from the oven. After reading every single comment of the Reddit post, my brain just couldn't overcome the catastrophe and the collapse of the world I had built for me, in which my wife is my love, my best friend and partner, as well as the person I admire the most. She was entirely perfect and made me happy for many years. I thought no couple in the world could have what we had. We were both very happy for a long time. We were both attractive. We were both inherently good, had big hearts, and were individually wildly successful in our careers. After the Reddit post, I moved to an Airbnb and eventually with family to think things through. It was a terrible time, but a psychologist helped me recover from a terrible mental state. It coincided with the pandemic hitting very hard in my city. I caught the virus, which didn't help. During this time, we kept talking and my wife was very sorry and continued saying they hadn't met. I knew it wasn't true but was willing to forgive the woman of my dreams, who continued being in the highest altar of my universe. Fast forward last Saturday morning, I went back to our place, ready to forgive her and talk things through in the most mature way possible, and well, there she was, but I was the one who received the biggest surprise, to say the least. The guy was in my house naked, and so was my wife. The guy from the messages, the guy from the pics, the one she said she didn't even like. I caught him hiding in my bathroom as my wife was putting her pajamas on. When I saw him hiding in my bathroom, He uttered, "Sorry, dude." For a second I asked myself, is this where I kill him? But I instantly replied, I got nothing against you. Because the guy was just nailing this hot woman, even if he was doing so in a house full of pictures of me, pictures of our wedding and our families, pictures of my dead father. Who would be so sad to see how the marriage he never witnessed was going to end? He has always been the reason. I tried to make the world a better place. He passed away 2 months before our wedding. I'm sorry, I still love her to death. But I understand enough is enough, even if my world collapses. I hope I can build a new one without lies and in which I'm not just a blind believer under an altar of a fake god. Story number 2. I think wife 48F of 25 years is cheating. My wife and I met when we were both in college. We were both working part-time and going to school full-time, and met while we were on lunch break from our jobs. I thought she was very, very pretty, so I went to eat there again, hoping to see her again. She came up to me and started talking to me the next time. We were both there, and I was sure she was interested, so I asked her out. We quickly started dating, and after a couple of years, we got married. When we met, I was just finishing school, and the company I was working for part-time offered me a full-time management position. My now wife was still in school, and I was paying for her college 100%. I actually started paying for her college shortly after we became a couple because she came from a very large family, and they couldn't afford to help her, and working part-time she didn't have a lot either, and I was then working full-time. So I paid for her schooling. This is important later. She is very smart, brilliant, graduated with honors, and after a couple of not-so-great jobs, got a real good professional job that she stayed at for many years, making good money with very good benefits during our dating years and our early marriage. We had a great S*X life. We didn't have S*X every single day, but when we did, it was wild and sometimes very kinky. I was fairly popular in high school, captain of the football team in college. I was in good shape, ran half marathons, etc. I guess I did okay with the ladies and had a number of partners, and a one long-term girlfriend that got a little kinky. My wife, however, was much more experienced than I. She was younger than me, but had many more partners and had done much more than I s***schwally. She liked to party and go a little wild when she partied, so she had a bit of a well-earned reputation. I found out all about it from a mutual friend right from the start, and I was good with it. If anything, it made me like her all the more early in our relationship. She would always tell me how good I was, and how I was the first person that cared about her needs and got her off. That always made me feel good, and to this day I always make sure she is satisfied before me. I'm fairly average in all ways, so I always felt the need to put in maximum effort to make sure my partner wanted me, and wouldn't stray thinking they could get better S***X from someone else. Sure, I'm a little insecure there. After a few years of marriage, I decided to pursue a dream of starting my own sports team, and it was a real struggle to get things off the ground. My wife helped me every step of the way, and to make things even more interesting, we bought a big house at about the same time. We were both working our regular jobs, and now working to get this new business going. I probably didn't get more than 4 hours of sleep a night for the next 20 years. And that's not an exaggeration. Money was pretty tight at this time, because of all the time I was spending with my new team. I changed jobs a few times and was putting a lot of my own money into the team to build it up. My wife was bringing home more money than me, and there were a few arguments about money and how much I was spending. But all in all, we were rock solid. She was my best friend, wife, and lover. The team travels to events every weekend during the season, and probably 90% of the time my wife traveled with me and was by my side all the time. Before we had kids, some events weren't far from home, so I would be home late that night even if she didn't go. This meant that I missed a lot of family and friend occasions, She went to many family and friends' weddings and other things solo. She even took a few trips with her single friends to the beach for a week to hang out and relax. She loves the beach. Shortly after our 5th wedding anniversary, I was looking for some team pictures, and my wife told me to look in the drawers in a spare room. I found pictures of her bachelorette party. We had talked about it after, and she had told me about all the drinking and dancing, flirting with some guys, and that it was pretty innocent and tame. My bachelor party was pretty wild, and some of the wildest things were done by her brothers, so I was a fairly good boy and wasn't worried about hers at all. Well, the pictures painted a little different picture. Her maid of honor bought her a stripper and was nice enough to take pictures so she'd remember the night, I guess. There was a lot of alcohol, and the pictures showed the stripper doing his thing, and my wife grinding on him, having a good time. The last photo showed him completely naked. Standing in front of her, she still had all her clothes on with her hand wrapped around his junk. I was like, WTF? I took the photos and immediately showed them to her and asked WTF. She said she didn't tell me about the stripper because she didn't want me to get jealous and that all her friends were egging her on to touch him. And she was quite drunk, so she did. She swore up and down that was all that happened. And since I had done about the same at my party that same night, I didn't think I could be pissed. I was really only mad that she didn't tell me about it. She knew exactly what happened at mine all. Her brothers told her. This did let me know that she could do something, and leave out details when she told me and not feel she was lying at all. It always left a nagging little doubt in my head about those beach trips, and if she was completely honest about them. Fast forward a few years and things were greatly improving. We waited to have kids because we wanted to be able to provide for them properly. My sports team had really started to take off and was starting to make us money instead of costing us money. We both had good jobs, and we decided it was time to have kids. We had 2 children for years apart, and everything was going great. Sports team was really taking off, winning championships, awards, etc. I started to become a little bit of a local celebrity. Everyone knew who I was. I was doing TV interviews, radio, etc. Just local and regional stuff, nothing big time, but things were going great. In fact, between my 2 children's births, my wife and I were having the most **x we ever had in our relationship. Wild, crazy times that we both seemed to enjoy very much. There was even some internet stuff, and she was the star. Remember, she is very, very pretty and a bit kinky too. This ended a few years ago at her request. These were probably the best days of my life. It is also very important to note that even though we were having some wild times, it was just the 2 of us. We had talked about ever fooling around and both completely agreed. It was a 100% deal breaker. She told me if I ever cheated, we were done, end of story. We were still very close. But I have found out very recently that after our 2nd child was born, that this is when she started resenting the sports team. She has now told me it bothered her that I was getting all the attention, awards, etc. after she had done so much work and sacrificed so much to get things going. I really didn't see it at the time. Hang in there, the part where I need your help is coming soon. Now we have children and she can't, or doesn't want to bring them to all our events, so she starts traveling with the team less and less. I swear that I always ask her to go, as I really want her there with me. Fast forward a few more years and my wife's father passes away. They were very close, and he was very protective of his baby girl. Side note, he didn't like me at all at first, but warmed up to me. And I really liked him and respected him a lot. After a short period of time, my wife announces she is quitting her job and going back to school to change careers and follow in her father's footsteps. I'm a little worried because that means I have to pay for her to go to college again, take care of 2 young kids, work my regular job, and run my team too. as she will be returning to school full-time. I really wanted to support her though, because of how much I knew it meant to her and all the support she had given me starting my team. She went summers, nights, etc. to get done as fast as she could, and I made it work as best as I could. The kids and I look back at these times and really think it was fun, me picking them up from daycare, cooking, me microwaving kids' cuisine, and then tagging along to nights with the team. Things seem to be going great. Fast forward to a few years ago, and we're doing so well that I say I want to take her away for a week to her favorite beach for a week, just the two of us, as a second honeymoon. We didn't have a lot of money for our first one, so it wasn't so great, and I wanted to make it up to her. It went great. She loved the beach. And we made love more than we did on our first honeymoon. And that's when things seemed to start going bad. After that trip, even though the kids were older, she didn't want to travel with the team anymore. She started wanting to take a trip every summer to the beach, right in the middle of my season when she knew I couldn't go. She said I could come if I want, but she's going either way. She said she was tired of missing out. And since we were doing so well, we could afford it, and she was going. She'd take her kids and usually invite some of her family along, but it still makes me feel bad. She didn't get to go this year, but has already told me she's going next year without me again. I don't think she's meeting anyone on these trips, but I still don't think it's a good thing. As the last few years have played out, she seems to resent my team more and more. She comes around the team so little that even friends ask what's up. If you've stayed with me for this long, the novel is coming to an end. About 2 years ago, she starts talking about a new co-worker a lot. Yeah, you can see where this is going. She tells me how smart he is and all the new ideas he has and how they have become friends very quickly, which is unusual as she hasn't made friends with her co-workers that much. I'm really getting bad vibes from this right from the start. Then her company is having a big company outing, taking a bus trip to a big city for a fancy dinner. And show and spouses are invited. I go partially just so I can meet this guy. He's bigger than me, around 6'2", but he's pretty fat and out of shape. But it's obvious to me the way he looks at my wife that he likes her. I ask her about him when we're alone, and she says that they're just friends, and for me not to worry, just look at him, she says. I could never be attracted to someone like that. Well, on the bus ride home, she asks me not to sit next to her, so she can stretch out and fall asleep as it's close to 1 a.m. Honestly, it pissed me off because I figured she'd have co-workers sitting with her in no time. She doesn't for most of the trip, about 4 hours. But for the last half hour, he comes up and sits next to her, and they talk the rest of the way home. Of course, I ask what they were talking about, and she says it's a work project coming up that they will be working on together. Of course, my spidey senses are going crazy, but I've got no proof anything is going on. Things actually seem to cool off for a little while, as I think they both have other big projects that keep them apart, but I'm not at all sure about it. One thing is for sure, she stops sleeping with me. She says it's my snoring, and I do snore. I offered to sleep in another room so she doesn't have to sleep on the couch. So now we're sleeping in separate rooms? Let's call that red flag number 3, but I'm not really counting. It gets worse. The S*X stops shortly thereafter too. Giant red flag. She always wanted S*X. But no says medical things are bothering her. The kids might hear, or 1,001 other excuses why she doesn't want to anymore. I've tried to talk to her about this a number of times and it never goes well. I try and keep my cool, but I have asked if there is someone else, because I figure if she isn't getting it from me, she's getting it from someone else. Looking back, I wish I didn't say that, then maybe she would have let her guard down. Anyway, about a month or so ago, one night at about midnight, her phone starts blowing up. She used to leave it downstairs at night to charge, and I was going to be sleeping downstairs that night. I got lucky and figured out her password, and of course co-worker is the one texting her. I stayed up the entire night reading their texts and going through her phone. It was a Friday night, so I didn't have to be at work the next morning, but we did have a team event. But I really didn't care. He was texting how much he missed her and hoped they'd see each other soon. There were missing texts and conversations when things were getting more heated. And it was obvious from the conversations that it seemed like there were phone calls and other things missing as well. Like I said from the start, she is a very smart woman, and you could tell she was trying to hide certain things. There were tons of I love yous, way more than I have heard in the last few years. Lots of I miss yous, I miss your hugs, blowing kisses emojis, and a lot more. Some selfies at company things together, saying how cute they are and on and on. The only thing is there is not any actual talk of having S**X or proof of an actual physical affair. Obviously, it looks like there's one going on to me. She has the time as I work a lot and spend time with the team, and I think she thinks the motive. There's been a ton of other red flags that I think I chose to ignore until now. She's had to work late a lot the last year or so. There were a couple of trips for work. She's all of a sudden started drinking, and it's quite a bit every night, and many other things. I guess my fear of losing everything I've worked so hard for kept me from blowing this up sooner. The day after I went in her phone, I asked my oldest child if co-worker was married. Although he was, and my oldest has had an internship at my wife's company before the lockdown happened, so I figured they would know. They asked why, and I made up some lie about seeing him on Facebook with no wife, and I thought he had a wife. Said child immediately went to my wife and told her I was asking about co-worker. Wife then came storming into my office and screamed at me about looking through her phone. She knew instantly why I would ask that, I guess. I'm sure I must have sent off a bunch of other signs that I was wondering if something was going on. Anyway, she went through all the things cheaters usually do. She denied everything. I took screenshots, so she only admitted to what I had proof of, which wasn't much. Blamed me for invading her privacy, blamed me for a lot of other stuff too. Basically turning it around. That I drove her to seek this close emotional friendship with him, but that was all it was. I knew I didn't have any proof of anything else. So I said I wasn't accusing her of anything, but she had to agree it looked pretty bad from my point of view and how everything was going between us. She got madder because I was so calm and wouldn't yell back, and stormed out. I looked at a lot of Reddit since then and realized just how many mistakes I've made. Since that blow up, she's been hiding her phone, changed her passwords on everything, and has made sure she's not going to let me find anything else very easily. I did ask her about this, and she tells me I invaded her privacy. But if I want her phone, I can have it. I politely told her I know how smart she is, and if she wanted to hide something from me, she's smart enough to figure out how. So where do I go from here? I just want the truth. We had one other talk, but it was more of the same. I don't want to lose everything. But if she's a lying cheater, I don't want that either. The worst part is I still love her with all my heart. She's so smart, beautiful. A great mother to my kids, who are both brilliant like her, tops in their class. I know I'm not perfect, I can be pretty intense. Work a lot and have made many mistakes, I'm sure, but I've tried really hard to give her a good life. I just want the truth, no matter if it's going to hurt or not. No half-truths or trickle the truth to me. God, this sucks. Any good advice is appreciated. Thanks in advance.